Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas, and this is how to make a first-person shooter in Unity, and welcome to episode 23. So this episode we're going to have a little bit more of an environment theme going on. So we'll look at things like wind zones, we'll add in some shrubbery. We're also going to look at some new scenes, and we're going to have a simple main menu which will build up over time, and we'll look at having a credits menu as well. So we'll deal with buttons and UI in this episode as well. So firstly, let's carry on where we left off last time pretty much straight away. And let's look at these trees over here. So if you use the assets on the website that you can get for free, you'll have these exact trees. Now these trees are already preset, so they're going to be affected by something called a wind zone. What that means is if we go to Game Object, 3D Object, and go to Wind Zone, what this does is it applies a wind force to these particular trees. So you can see, especially in this version of the editor, I'm using Unity 2017 at this point. If we move it around, you can see the effects that it's going to have when we press play. So let's move our wind zone to about here and let's press play, and we can see by default what's going to happen. So let's head over here all the way to these trees. And already you can see them kind of bristling in the wind. Now obviously you can change this using the settings over here. So our main will give them a bit more of a bend, a bit more violent turbulence to it, especially if we increase our turbulence. Now you can see if you go a bit mental, they do go a bit mental. So the higher it is, just be wary about how you want it to look. A good setting to have a nice breeze, I like to think, is about 2.5 for the main and turbulence about 1.1. And obviously the pulse magnitude and frequency is something when you get blustery kind of breezes every now and again. So when it gets a little bit blustery, that's how you can control that. So every now and again you'll go shh kind of thing. That was my impression of wind, by the way. So by default, I think I like to keep them perfectly normal. So let's come out of there and let's change that to 2.5 as we had, and let's have this as 1.1. So it's not just the trees that are going to be affected by this. There are various different things that you can add to a terrain which are going to be affected by your wind zone. So I'm going to bring in this bush folder, which, just like every other time, you can get on the the downloads and assets section on the website for free. And I'm going to drag it into the objects folder. Take just a second to import. And let's go to bush. And although it isn't a tree, we can still put it in the tree section of the terrain. So if we go to edit trees, add tree, and rather than add an actual tree, we can add this bush into there, click on add, and much in the same way that we do with the trees, change our brush size, density, height, and as I say, although it's not actually a tree, it's still referenced as a tree, but the effect is still the same. So we can do that there. These bushes will also be affected by the wind zone. So if we head on all the way over here again, we should be able to see, yep, we got our trees blustering about, and we can also see our bushes doing the exact same thing. So they react the same sort of way. What I'm going to quickly do is move the first person controller over here so we don't have to run as far when we're testing. So let's bring him to about there. So there's also a different way that you can have an effect of wind on your terrain. And we're going to do that by going to our textures folder, and we're going to drag and drop this shrub and grass flow texture into here. Now the way this works is slightly differently. If we go to our terrain and go to this option here, which is plants, so it's things like grass and whatnot, click on edit and add grass texture. We can add in either the grass or the shrub. So let's start with the grass and just drag and drop onto this 2D texture right there. You can change the width, height, the minimums and maximums, and the color as well. I'm going to leave them as default just to speed things up, but feel free to modify these as you need to. And click on add. And just like the trees, this works in the same way. So we can do a large section of grass, let's say there, but I'm going to bring it to about there. Now the way this works is it's not affected by the wind zone, it's actually affected by the terrain's wind settings themselves, which is here, the speed, size and bending, and you see the grass tint as well, but I'm not going to bother with the grass tint. But if we change these, say higher, it'll have a higher effect on here. By default though, generally they pretty much do a decent job. So we'll have a look at the default settings for the grass now. So over here we can see it's kind of flowing nicely in the breeze. So with the wind settings, it's always kind of nice to kind of have the two together nicely. So you could either have the wind a little bit slower affecting these, or the terrain wind affecting the grass a little bit more. So what we can do is let's change the speed, and you can see it's affecting it a little bit more there. Size, obviously, if you change, you can see what's going on. But generally, I like to keep it set as 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. The default's usually pretty decent. The same also applies for a shrub. So if we go onto our terrain, onto the paint detail for the plants and grass, edit, add grass texture, and drag in this shrub texture, and click on add. Once again, you can see that it is the same. So I'm going to decrease the target strength to about there, and you can see both of them are now mixed into one. So it just gives a bit more life to the terrain itself. So you can see the grass and the shrubbery mixed into one. So this is something that you can work with, you can play around with, and you can give it different texture colors, whether it's dry or anything like that. It's just worth playing around with and seeing what kind of environment you can come up with. So the environment, I think I said it last time, the environment is something that we're going to gradually build into, and we're going to build what we can to it to give ourselves a good environment for a shooter. So each episode as we go on, we'll probably do a little bit more environment. Some episodes we probably won't touch the environment. Some we'll do quite a bit because we've got some new things to add and have a bit of fun with it. So now let's move on to a new scene. So let's save that scene we've got there. And let's go to File and New Scene. And what we'll do here is let's create a... let's start with a scrolling credits scene. So something real simple. So game object, UI, and let's have raw image. And I'm going to have this as maybe a bit of a grey colour, a dark grey. And I'm going to have this as the background. So let's double click it, get it in the center. And let's have it as stretched. And let's have it full screen. So all the zeros. And let's press play. A bit darker, I think. Okay, so that looks pretty decent now. It's a dark grey. And let's add some credits in. So game object, UI, and let's have text. Now obviously I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but you can take as much time as you need to and use different effects perhaps to do the credits. So I'm going to have it in the center of alignment. I'm going to have it bigger, so let's have it as 26. Let's have it in bold, and let's also have it white. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to type out some credits. So let's say lead designer Jimmy Vegas. Let's have lead programmer Mr. Vegas, and let's add some colons here so we can differentiate between. Let's have artists, and let's have Joe H. Let's have Kerry D, and let's also have what should we have? Let's have Kim T. And what else do we have? Let's have story board. Let's have Jimmy Vegas. Let's have one more as well. Let's have special thanks Mrs. Vegas. And let's have Tommy Rock. So we've got our simple credits there. They look all right for now. Obviously don't use them credits, they're not real credits. So the idea of what we're going to do with scrolling credits is it's going to be done via an animation. So when we start the scene, we want our credits to scroll upwards. And we can do this by having our text actually set there and adding the animation to it. So let's click on the animation tab. Let's click on create. Make sure we're in animations, and let's call it cred scroll. Now let's press the record button and let's set our first keyframe. So let's have position on the X. Let's set it as 0. Position on the Y, let's set it as 0 and then minus 473. So it's off screen. So next thing we need to do is scroll it upwards. Let's go to keyframe. So how long are we going to say this one wants to scroll for? So let's say to scroll for 10 seconds. So we're going to go to frame 600. So 600, hit enter. The reason we go 600 is because our samples is 60 frames a second. So by the time we get to frame 600, we want our credits to be just off screen. So about there. And then press the record button again. So now when we press play, we should be able to see our credits scroll nicely up the screen. So, take as much time as you need on that one. As soon as we're done, let's add this to our scenes. So if we go to File, Build Settings, and let's add this as scene number 2. Remember, we did this with the game over screen a couple of tutorials ago, so the same process still applies here. Add open scenes, and it just prompts us to save it, and we'll just call it credit. So we've got that working. Next, what we'll do is let's create a main menu. Now I'm going to do this main menu fairly simply, but I'm going to add a little bit of variation to it. It's not going to just be a plain main menu. So let's go to File, New Scene, and let's actually save it straight away. Save scene as main menu. And now let's add in a game object. So 3D object, cube. Let's focus in on it. And we'll have this as the floor. I'm also going to set it dead center of the scene. And let's add some texture to it. So let's just add the tiling on there. And increase the scale on the, what should we increase it on? So it's going to be X and Z. So let's have that as 10 by 10. Going to get rid of the directional light. And let's just add our zombie in there for good measure. So let's add him in to there. Let's increase his size. And let's have a look at our main camera here. So let's get that into position. So let's bring it in. Flip it 180. And let's look down on our zombie. So about there. I'm just going to duplicate these just to move them along. And yep. Okay, so our scene now should show the zombie just there. So let's add some animation to him, just to make him less boring. So let's add the idle to our zombie. And he's still not doing anything. Okay, so what we'll do, let's remove the animator. So remove, let's add the animation. And I'm going to take the idle, duplicate, and bring that idle one into there. I'm just going to F2 and rename this idle menu, just so we can differentiate. And hopefully that should work. We need to go to debug, just change it to legacy. Yep, it is legacy, that's fine. Let's just see if we have, there we are. Okay, so we have a little bit of motion within our main menu now. So what we want to do now is let's create some buttons. So game object, UI, and button. So I'm going to start with 2 buttons. Let's start with a play game and credits, and we'll have each of the buttons working to take us to whatever scene we need to go to. So the first button, let's have it as down the bottom in the center, get it into position, and let's bring it upwards and across to about there. Now let's change it. Let's have the button text bigger, so let's have it as 30, and we'll have it bold, and let's increase the size of the button. And let's call the text play game. So we'll have the normal color as, let's have it a kind of grayish, slight crimson-y kind of color. I think I might change the text color to white. There we go. So you can take your time with this, you can add a sprite to it, and you can change the material and whatever else, just to make it look a little bit more like what you would expect in a main menu. So I'm going to right click, rename that button, and just call it play button. Hold control, press D to duplicate. F2, rename to credit button. And change the text to credits. And then let's just move this button across to about there, so it's in line. And let's also change it to maybe a kind of a bit pinker. There we go. So the idea of what we're going to do is we're going to write a quick little script now which will allow us to change scene with a press of these buttons. So if we go to our scripts folder, right click, create C# script, and we'll call it main menu options. Open the script in MonoDevelop or Visual Studio, and we're going to have, it's not going to be too big, this script, a couple of lines should do the trick, but if you ever have any problems with it, head over to the website, download it in the Downloads and Assets section for free. So let's get rid of void start, void update, don't need them. At the very top of the scene, of the script I should say, what we need to do is put in using Unity engine dot scene management semicolon, because we're dealing with the scene manager in this, and we need it to kind of hopefully take us to the right scene. So first things first, public void. Now the reason we put public is because to attach it to a button we need to have the word public there. Play game, open close bracket, open curly bracket, and what this does is in scene manager dot load scene, and in brackets we need to put in whatever the game is. So file, build settings, and it's scene 0. So in there we put 0 semicolon and close curly bracket. Next one is going to be the credits. So public void credit scene, open close bracket, open curly bracket, and the same again, scene manager dot load scene, and in brackets we put whatever the credit is, which was number 2 I believe. So build settings credit is number 2. Type that in there, semicolon, close curly bracket, and save the script. So now we just need to attach that script to the scene. So game object, create empty, and attach. I'll tell you what, let's rename it first. So rename menu options, and then we just need to drag and drop our main menu script onto there. We don't need to attach any variables because there are none. And if we go to the play button, and down here on click, list is empty, click on plus, drag and drop that menu options into there, this little box here, click on no function, then click on main menu options, and then click on play game. Same with the credit button, list is empty, so click plus, drag and drop the menu options button, click on no function, main menu options, and then it's credit scene. And let's save that scene there, and let's also add it to the build settings. Add open scenes, so that's number 3 now. So if we press play, our main menu, it's coming along fairly well. So let's click on play game, and it takes us to our game. So at the same time, we have the credits, and it takes us to our credit scene. Now the way this works is after probably 12 seconds, we want to come back to the main menu. So let's create a quick script for that one. So we've done C#, let's do something a little in JavaScript now. Or should we stick to C#? What's best? Let's do it in JavaScript as I originally said. And this is just a real quick little script to take us back. So cred to menu. So all we need to do in this is in function start, we just need to put yield wait for seconds, and in brackets let's put 12 semicolon, and oops, let's put application dot load scene, and it's 3 because we added that, if you remember, just a second ago as scene 3. Save that script, and let's head back to our credit scene, which is right there, and let's game object, create empty, F2, and let's put back to menu, and then we just need to attach that script onto it, and it is that one, cred to menu. So all this does is after 12 seconds it takes us back to our main menu. So let's test this entire process out. So let's save that scene, head to main menu, press play, let's view the credits, and after 12 seconds we should be able to go back to our main menu. Okay, so we haven't. It doesn't like that at all. What's it saying it doesn't like? Okay, so I'll tell you what we'll do. Rather than use JavaScript, we'll stick with C#. I tend to like C# a little bit more than JavaScript, to be honest. So right click, create C#, and let's just have cred to menu and just put C at the end there. If you do want to use the JavaScript one, I'll leave a comment in below just to show you how to do the JavaScript version. So to do the C# version, all we need to do is at the top again, using Unity engine dot scene management semicolon, and get rid of void update, we don't need that, and let's put I enumerator, and let's call this return to menu, open close bracket, open curly bracket, go down a few lines and close curly bracket. It should turn this blue, which is fine, and we'll do yield return new, wait for seconds, in brackets. I think I'll do 11 seconds actually. 12 may seem a little bit too long considering the animation is 10 seconds. And all we need to do is scene manager dot load scene, and in brackets it was number 3 semicolon, and void start. All we need to do is do a start coroutine right there, and in brackets return to menu, open close bracket semicolon, and save. So we just need to attach this one to our credits right there. So back to menu, attach the script, so cred to menu C onto there. Let's get rid of the JavaScript version because I don't like that, and I think I'm going to delete the JavaScript version. I would recommend using the C# version because, well, we are going to carry on with C# throughout this now because it is much easier, but it's nice to know 2 languages, if you know what I mean. So let's save that and try the whole process once again. So main menu, press play, credits. So we watch the credits, spans for about 11 seconds. And then takes us back to the main menu. Now the reason it's come up black is it's one of them little quirks of Unity. If you play this game for real, if you build the game, it won't turn up black. For some reason, for as long as I can remember, Unity has always had this issue where when you load up a new scene, the lighting just doesn't work properly. If we were to actually put a directional light or a source light or any kind of light within the scene itself, other than the lighting source here, it would work at least somewhat better. It's just one of them quirks, as I say. Don't worry about it if it happens to you. It happens to all of us with anything like that. It's just switching scenes that it does it with. So let's save that entire project there. So next episode, we're going to look at maybe a fade screen. So when we start up our game, we press play game, we fade into our game. We'll look at some extra splash screens. So we'll look at put an extra scene in there, which loads up your developer studio. So you'll come up with Made in Unity, Jimmy Vegas Game Studios, and such, and then you come onto the main menu. And we'll also look a little bit more at some environment. So the aim of where I want to go with this now is we'll bring in some more enemies soon, and we'll bring in some more objectives and some more guns, and we'll have a lot of fun from here on in. So guys, until the next episode, thank you very much for watching.